Hi, my name's Cordy, and at this time, I think of reflection, it's probably time to be a bit frank and a bit honest about what's been going on the channel. I thought now that we've got to, sorry, I'm filming. Now that we've got just past 10,000 subscribers, I wanted to talk to you about what my real kind of passion project was, and that's actually a sitcom that I've been writing. It's called Sibling Death, and it's about my life as a sort of toddler growing up, having difficulty hearing, and kind of the hilarity ensues. So we're pitching this to Netflix, and I've got a couple of meetings sort of planned, but I really just wanted to be honest about what's been going on here, and that's why I started YouTube. And the guitar stuff is kind of by the by, obviously, so just hammer the comments and let me know. We're really going to hit the merch pretty strong with this Sibling Death stuff. I think we're going to have duvets, we're going to have pillowcases, t-shirts, all kind of stuff. So that's what it's all about, really, obviously. Today I wanted to talk to you about preamps on the Helix and the HX Stomp. I've had people ask me occasionally, what's the difference? I've seen people comment this sort of stuff. What's the difference between the preamp and the amp? And also, why is it that you use a preamp in some of these presets? These sorts of things. So I decided to explore some of this a little bit and put together some tones and just talk you through them, and some of the ways that you might want to consider using the preamps if you haven't already. The first reason that I would use one of these preamps is for reduced DSP load, if you want to call it that. I know I've used it a couple of times in like the Robin Ford presets on the HX Stomp or on the Helix, where if you want to have one line but two amps, using two actual amps can really take up quite a lot of DSP, especially if you pair it with two cabs. Whereas using two preamps has a way smaller kind of load on the DSP and means that you can do a little bit more. The compromise, I guess, is that you don't have some of the power amp features, but I guess it's for you to kind of listen and hear if you think those things are missing or not. I know for me personally, things like the sag, the hum and the ripple, I don't think make a huge impact on tone. It's like a small percentage of what's actually going on. Obviously the presence is quite a big thing, but we can make adjustments for that with IRs and all that sort of stuff. So using two preamps to kind of get that dual amp thing going on, but without using up all the DSP. For this first video that I put up earlier this morning, I'll just play a clip now, but I used a Line 6 litigator and a US double vibe, which is like a twin vibrato, I presume, and that going into two different cabs. Each of those go into their own cab, and then that all goes through this big kind of reverb and delay thing. But I think it's got kind of cool tone. It's a slightly different vibe than you'd get using just one amp, and I guess that's the reason that you might want to explore this. Now the other way that you could think about using these preamps is in the real world of pedals and stuff. You get preamp pedals like Origin Effects make a Revival drive, or you know, you get all kinds of pedals that like the Steel String Singer or the Lenny, the J-Rocket Lenny. These things that are kind of preamp based pedals, which aren't really just a drive pedal or aren't really just a boost pedal, but they're also doing quite a lot of tonal shaping, and in theory are trying to sound like a certain thing, whether it's a dumble or whatever. You could consider those as preamp pedals. And so what I thought was, what if I took a tone that I already like? So I've taken one of my Eric Johnson kind of lead tones, and instead of using an overdrive, I thought, well, I could use a preamp section from the Trainwreck, or you know, another amp that I like, put that in front of the amp and see what happens. You know, is that a different kind of tone? Does that give me other things that a normal drive pedal on the Helix wouldn't? And here's the results. Now, just to show you the kind of difference that it makes if you choose a different preamp, I've also selected the Placated Dirty, which is based on the Friedman BE Overdrive. I've used that preamp in front of the same preset, and here's how that kind of sounds. So I think after watching those, you could kind of see that the preamp does have a kind of different vibe to just a normal drive pedal. You know, like that Trainwreck certainly sounded to me worlds different to the Friedman version, even though it's the same basic preset, it's just got that different preamp slotted in there. So I think personally that's a kind of cool thing you can do with the preamps that I hadn't really tried before today, but I think it's something that I'm going to do a bit more of. And then the last way that I've thought of or spoken to someone about, whose name rhymes with Boss, I've spoken to him about you know, using the Helix with real amps. He suggested you could chuck these preamp models in front of a real amp in the return, for instance, or in 4-cable method. But so you could take like that Friedman or the Trainwreck preamp, and in 4-cable method you could mix that up and use that with the amp. You know, you could bypass the actual preamp section of the real amp and use one of these. Now I've experimented with that a little bit, I'm going to do it more, but that had a really good result when I've experimented with it. I haven't filmed it yet, but I will do. But that's just the sort of the 3 ways that I think it's worth experimenting the preamps in the Helix if you haven't already. So the first one was you can use those as dual amps, and they take up way less DSP than the real amp, so you're able to do like 2 amp and 2 cab setups with the preamps. You're able to use the preamp as like a gain, or you know, like you would use a drive pedal, chuck that in front of presets that you already liked in place of where the drive pedal might be. That can have really cool effects. And then the last thing that I thought and I've tried is to put the preamps in a 4-cable method in front of a real amp, bypassing the actual preamp, and that can have really cool effects as well. So hopefully that's somewhat interesting. These presets I'll put in my Google Drive, and you can get the presets if you want them in the description. If there's anything useful in this video and you wanted to support me in some way, I've got a Patreon, or you could use the Buy Me a Coffee link, but only do that if you can really afford to and you got something useful out of this. The main preamps that I like, that I use so far as like the drive pedal side of things, are the train wreck, so the derailed Ingrid, and I've also checked out the placated dirty, as I said. So this is something I'm going to experiment with more, but let me know in the comments if you want some of that Deaf Sibling merch, or if you've got any preamp drives that you'd like to use. So right here's a Helix. Thank you for watching.